Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting.
I've suffered with anxiety since my first child was born 13 years ago. It's something until recently that I've kept to myself, believing it's just something that most parents must go through. And it's certainly something that will be with me until fate takes hold of each of our destinies, I suppose. As for depression, that's certainly something new and something that will, without a doubt, be with me till the end of my days. Many people, of course, suffer with such things, and we all feel differently about it, and we all deal with it differently. But how does it feel for me? Well, seeing as this is a video game channel, let's try to visualize how I feel many days of the week through the piece of visual and storytelling art that is Hollow Knight. The way I can feel most days is like I'm staring into the abyss. Below there is nothing but shadow, and you hear it. Something calling to you to descend into the madness. Except that calling is more a stronger malevolent force, which more, accurately, I suppose, tries to drag you in. I've certainly had my days where I just stare into the deepest horrors, my mind can conjure up, a place where not light or even hope, seemingly exists. These can be dark places, and you want to desperately leave them, but you see no way out of, at those given times. But like with many things in life, we often suffer more in imagination than we do in reality, and in those moments we need to look deep into ourselves, as there is always a source of strength which will and can always spring up if we were to look for it. The next day will be better. In those moments, although you're still in darkness, you can begin to climb up one step at a time. Some are easier, other steps are harder, but still one step at a time. In the world outside of your mind, whilst you're still trying to climb, these shadows can affect your general temperament, which naturally affects yourself, but can also affect others. Sometimes your one saving mental grace is that you're aware of it, and as long as you're aware of it, and certainly don't like it, then the climb can be easier. But I've certainly been in those moments where I'm either dragged back down or decide to sit on that ledge with no strength or willpower to continue at that given moment in time. But I keep telling myself, I don't want to be here. That's my personal motivation. I know the issues. You know the issues. You have the power over your mind, not outside events. And we realize this, and once again, we can find the strength to continue to ascend, to climb up one step at a time. Hollow Knight showed me that sometimes you have to go into those dark places, or those places where we fear, because our fears can only be what's possible within our realities. And in order to confront these fears, we must embrace them, knowing that they are and always will be a part of us. To be able to confront your fears is something we must all strive for, to understand and overcome whilst continuing to move forwards. Always got to move forwards. Today, I was able to climb out to that place where I don't want to be and make this video, because when your mind is in the wrong place, like mine has been for some time and still will often be, the desire to create or simply be yourself is what's stripped from you, and you miss that person, and so do those who care for you or those who are around you and know you. When you finally see that moment of respite, that moment of hope, you cling to it stronger than anything else. And those days you manage to climb out, even if it's just for one day, you climb out and promise yourself that you will do everything you can to enjoy those moments and find whatever pleasure you can to keep yourself standing for every second that you can. Outside of those close to me, video games can do this for me. Escapism isn't running away. It's about those momentary disconnects we all need. It's not a place we should be hiding in. It's a place we should be recharging in. And it's not just only okay to recharge, it's utterly essential. To jump into gaming, I'm somewhat part of a unique generation in gaming, I suppose. Just old enough to have played and been through virtually every generation of video games. When you've been connected to gaming that long, you clearly must have a great passion for it. But even within gaming, those moments of escapism which you desire, there are times when even that can affect your mental, helping to make your often regular climb out of the abyss just a bit harder. So yeah, that's right. When I'm feeling down about gaming, I can feel down in general. It's something I've always noticed since it started, really, but it's also something I've never really discussed. I talked before about why I feel video games are important in a video where I deep dived into what we as individuals look for in both escapism, as well as looking into the future for both entertainment and foresight into dreamed, fantastical futures of innovation in science and exploration. All mediums offer this in many ways, but gaming for me is at the forefront, and always has been. I'm immensely passionate about gaming itself, as you should know. I mean, I have a YouTube channel, purely based around gaming, but I'm also equally immensely passionate about the health of the industry, because one cannot exist without the other, right? This, of course, isn't the source of my anxieties, and depressions, far from it. But it certainly adds to that climb being harder, as it affects my needs for those moments of required escapism to refuel my mental. So when I see bad news stories about once great gaming companies, whether they've closed down, whether people have unfortunately passed away and entered the halls of Valhalla, or something seedy has happened within the industry, this makes me feel a certain way. And for the most part, it's never the good way. Why would it be? But what I've discovered, as mentioned, is that this can leak into my personal mindset, negatively in many ways. As I've said, we all look for those moments of escapism from the world, right? Those moments where whatever troubles are happening, you yearn for those moments where you can forget everything momentarily and completely focus on something that can take your mind away. Somewhere that doesn't judge you or pressure you or make you feel upset or annoyed outside of your own control. Gaming, like I said, is that for me. But if the industry is suffering, I feel like it truly affects me negatively. And this, I feel is completely acceptable and relatable for most people who love something that is, for the most part, detached from them personally. If we look at, just from a consumer point of view, but also something they've always known and have always been, has always been a part of them. I've certainly had my moments of, depression outside of gaming when people I effectively grew up with and, have 100% affected my character. If these people have passed away or something negative has happened. Many people know me as a massive Michael Jackson fan. not that type of fan who knew what he had for breakfast on his last Saturday morning, or what his favorite magazine was when he was taking a mad deuce on the toilet. But the type of fan who utterly loved his persona on stage and of course his music. And the same for people like Robin Williams, who was, comedy-wise, in my opinion, one of, if not the greatest comedians ever. But without knowing him, on a personal level, he also came across as one of the type of human beings that we all should, I feel we should strive to be, compassionately. And it's the same for people like David Bowie and Terry Pratchett. With Terry Pratchett being the author of my favorite book series, known as the Discworld, a series of books that fundamentally changed my view of life, along with also Carl Sagan. When these people pass away, a part of me goes with them, and I know for sure that I haven't been the same since. Life can be hard when you lose your somewhat heroes and inspirations, but we hold on to what we have, right? And we try to keep moving forwards because we have to and we must. So given this context, gaming is no different for me. When Satoru Iwata passed away, I felt a part of me, gaming and Nintendo fade away. A figure who had been in your life to a degree, a personality who helped sculpt and craft some of your favorite moments in time, was now gone. And if you were as passionate about gaming as a whole as I am, then I'm sure it affected you too. But not just in gaming, but outside of it as well. When people pass, it's hard, especially when you have a connection to them in some shape or form. But it can also be other things that can upset you. Not long ago, I done a video on some of my favorite composers in the industry, like Yuzo Koshiro and Yoko Shimomura, of Streets of Rage and Street Fighter fame, amongst a wealth of other classic compositions. They talked about their struggles in the industry, trying to get their names out there, even though for me, music-wise, they've effectively had the same cultural and long-lasting impact on me as the likes of Michael Jackson and David Bowie. But if you ask the average person who were the composers of these games, they'd probably struggle to name probably one, most likely none. Hence these composers talking about their struggles in the industry. For me, I find things like this somewhat upsetting. Knowing that the very people who have effectively shaped part of my life and also part of culture are struggling. Which could lead them to giving up and leaving the industry, which for me would be a massive blow, because no one wants wants their favorite artist to disappear, right? We accept that life is life, but still, we want to cling onto everything that makes us happy, and why not? This should be the goal of everyone. Obviously, just as long as that happiness doesn't purposefully affect anyone else negatively. And that's certainly something I try not to do with gaming, whether that's the amount of money I spend on it, or the amount of time I spend in it, because I have other people around me who desire my time, and I certainly want to give a large amount of that time to those other people. But at the same time, it's important to also have me time, and it's okay, every now and then to treat yourself to a certain degree, at least for myself. Another game that had a massive impact on me was Diablo 2, and I've effectively been a Blizzard fan since the early days. Where we go back, it's like Rock and Roll Racing springs to mind on the SNES and some of those other early games, Lost Vikings, all that stuff. But I became fully aware of their name when Warcraft Orcs and Humans released, a game which spawned my love for Blizzard into the realms of Warcraft 2, 3, Diablo and StarCraft, when Blizzard went on fire back in the 90s and early 2000s. Look forward to today and my hype for Diablo 2 Resurrection, a remaster, finally done right by them, by everything that we've seen. My hype was through the roof, but Blizzard was, as a company for me, has been a shell of their former selves for years, and adding to the equation their buyout by Activision, making them Activision Blizzard as we know them today, and their treatment of Warcraft 3 Reforged, how World of Warcraft went downhill, and of course the recent news stories of their treatment of their staff and work practices and ethics. These things turned for me the once best, what I consider one of the best Western studios the world probably had for consistent quality and industry changing and defining games. It turned them into a company which I've fundamentally become, somewhat, almost completely detached from, as well as impacting my desire to continue to purchase their games. Something which with the likes of Diablo 2 Resurrection, it was a kick to my nostalgia, escapism balls, and it saddens me, deeply. Man, it even saddens me when industry and cultural legends like Nobuo Uematsu and Hironobu Sakaguchi are talking about a potential retirement for the industry after their potentially final game. Fantasian remains exclusive and untouchable to many on the Apple Store, a marketplace which, for me, cannot come close to the levels of appreciation and recognition these legends deserve to end on. It's almost like they'll be remembered, but their leaving party was an e-card and a celebration cup of tea, in the works canteen. Where for me they should, have statues and monuments, built for them. Bit of exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Then we added to the mix of old school companies, closing down or fading into obscurity, or even the great companies, the Japanese ones like Capcom, Konami, Namco, Sega. Sega. Them leaving the console industry, nearly tipped me over the edge back in the day. And if Nintendo weren't, still around then, I probably wouldn't be a gamer today. But seeing these companies lose fundamental staff and then churning out average rubbish, in once great series, it pains me to no end. Especially when those series are replaced by other companies. Attempts at a rinse and repeat annual same old template of average boredom. Yet they still sell in the millions. Fueling the continued push by other companies to earn as much money as possible off the mundane. It just kills my enthusiasm for gaming, which in turn affects me on an emotional level. All I can say is, thank Crom for indies and those AA titles that are still holding out. When I'm not having fun with gaming, I lose a massive part of myself, and this without a doubt, affects my day-to-day mood, which can affect others around me. Something which sounds silly to say out loud, but is for me, unfortunately, a reality. Some people, like to push the narrative. It's just a business, it's just a corporation. They don't care about you. But like with all businesses, they had to start from somewhere. Most of them, right? And that somewhere was trying to get people to care about their products. And fortunately, I'm old enough to have been around at the start of many of these companies, and the people who worked for these businesses wanted people to care about their products. Sure, these connections can start to feel like they're getting lost when the business becomes a multinational and a corporation, as people like to keep reminding you. But still, when these companies are the people who want to make great products and want to please you as a customer, and and thanks to things like Iwata's directs and Iwata asks, there was a time when Nintendo also tried to keep that connection to their fans. Still do, of course, but it's clear to see that a personality has been lost. Some magic has been lost. Something we all felt like we had a connection to. Personally, of course, I don't want gaming to become a money-driven industry, which it is now, unfortunately, where creativity is pushed to the side by the safe and certain surefire successes, which it unfortunately has in many ways. Most of the companies I grew up with were built by people who wanted to create art in video game form, who of course wanted to make money, still business, but still. But first and foremost, wanted to create something they've always dreamed of. And as gamers, we felt that in the greatest games, the games we knew were created from passion and desire, undriven by a publisher's or investor's needs to make a quick buck. Gaming money-wise is as healthy as it's ever been. But for me, look under the hood and we see the massive holes that keep getting deeper. And I honestly can't stand it. Outside of gaming and back into my personal anxieties and depressions, today is fine. Today is okay, and okay is where most of us sit in comfort. Okay is a good place to be. But anyway, I feel like I've chirped on long enough with this one. Of course, I still find pleasure in gaming. I always will. But with it being a deep part of me, it always affects me emotionally. And I need to both express this and learn to control it for my own personal sanity. When times get rough, I retreat back to the good old days and play those games that lift my soul and remind me of what gaming once was for me. A place for passionate nerds who simply wanted to have fun. Even if massive success never followed for the company, just as long as they could keep on creating, keep on playing, and keep on having fun. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, people. Do you get emotionally affected by gaming, as a whole? Does it affect your personal life in any way? If you suffer, with anxiety and depression, don't ever be afraid to talk about it. Even if that talk is to yourself out loud, list your problems and do your best to tackle each one at a time. For those that are out of your control, there are ways to manage them. You just have to look or find help looking. And believe me, when I say this, there will always be someone who will help you. Simple acts of kindness, people. As a final thought, tell me stories of what brings you happiness in gaming. As that's something we always want to find, and something gaming should always provide. So yeah, as always, thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves, and peace.